Okay, all right, 2:25 on the dot. Let's move on and introduce our next speaker, Axel Kaban, the Director of Analytics and Tech at Whole Whale. Um, we love working with the team at Whole Whale. They have so much expertise in the world of the technology behind, custom tracking, SEO, technical email setups, and Axel actually is one of the innovators of CauseWriter, from what I understand. So when he's not solving data questions, though, he's known to find some local gems in new cities. Axel, I would love to hear your most recent find, if you can think of one by the end of the session, just to, give us all a nice reco. But I'm going to hand the session over to you now.
Hello, everyone, and I'll be sharing my screen. Welcome, and thank you for the invitation, Jana. The valuable words, Rob. It's always very excited to be here with causevox. For those of you that do not know how well, we're a digital agency, leverage web data and different platforms, being social, advertising, general, organic advertising, paid, email, etc., so we can increase the impact of nonprofits and social impact organizations. Again, I'm Axel Kaban. I'm Director of Analytics and Technology here at Whole Whale. If not working internally, trying to find different platforms or tools that we could keep continuing this search. I'm also supporting on CauseWriter, which is another tool or platform that we have created mainly for specifics on data security and customization for nonprofits specifically in this case. Our experience expands across multiple partners and the different spaces, between them being cancer and disease, public health, hospitals, some animals environment, well-being, disaster relief, youth and education, and nonprofit media, among others. That said, for today, we're specifically going into the fundraising realm and understanding why the idea of more metrics is not always equal to better decisions. We're going to be talking about the 5 essential metrics, something that we consider is the top 5 if you need to do like a quick review, something really clear for the rest of the team or somebody above that wants to know how your fundraising efforts are performing. This is the place to go first. You can do deep dives later on. The 5 essential metrics is mainly to give a clear view of what that performance is like, how we can leverage free visualization tools like Looker Studio for reporting, escaping manual spreadsheet prison with smart data feeds when possible. We have a quick overview of some of those tools and kind of talking a little bit of how to transform insights into immediate fundraising actions. Jenna, to your question, I did pull a quick find that I got to have a view. Just not to brag, not trying to brag, but I'm currently in Croatia, and there's a really fun winery, Skar Winery in Dubrovnik, with local wines. If you like wine, if you can drink wine, if you're interested, it's a very fun find. They have, I forgot the name of it. The local grape has a very nice body. I'm not really much of a wine connoisseur, but it really blew my mind. One of those places is what I believe, like they're just kind of debating of many things, who created wine first. So there's the find. With that little break in, I wanted to do a quick poll for you all. How involved are you in your analytics reporting process, being specific for fundraising or general well-being of your campaigns? You can merge into the chat or simply do 1, 2, or 3, whatever you feel like you find yourselves. This is more to get a sense of the conversation. Ooh, that's a new one, Carrie. Interesting. Where do we begin? That's what I would call that one. All right, all right. So I feel like we are mostly in a good place here. Some different people, some people that regularly build reports, but just get to that point, and uh, a good amount of I want to know more. I need to get through the next stage, or you're at least interested. And so this is something that probably resonates with many of you. Just thinking about like wanting to or being requested for a report and having to go into multiple platforms, looking into those admin places, maybe having to pull CSVs and make sense heads or tails from all of this. Um, you decide to just export as much as you can. You will be able to eventually get some valuable information from there, right? And it is true. This is possible, but it can be very overwhelming if we don't have a sense of like, what are we looking for right away? Um, so this might be something that either is manual or either is just something that um, simply becomes unnecessarily overwhelming. I want to introduce that idea of the essential metrics, not as this is the only thing that you need, but at least this is the place that you can start. Um, and it's as simple as you only need to make sure that you have analytics tracking, even at the basic level of your site and your fundraising platform. I will be repeating this multiple times through this presentation, but causevox directly connects to Google Analytics. And that way you can get direct data of e-commerce transactions and conversions into Google Analytics from those campaigns. So breaking things down a little bit, I want to talk dimensions and metrics. So when we mention a dimension, it is a qualitative attribute. Think about it as something that is more descriptive than anything else. It could be either textual, it could be numeric, it could be a mix of both. In this sense, it can be thinking of a landing page and it's the URL path that that landing page has. In terms of metrics, it is a quantitative measurement. So anything that will give you a numerical value being either timestamp or time passed, a general account, or a percentage. So why we try to keep it simple and why we mentioned we don't want to have that much data, or we don't need to have that much data if we're just answering some quick questions. One is redundancy. Many metrics measure similar behavior and not necessarily include them all in a report. Thinking about engagement rate and bounce rate. Bounce rate, if you've worked with this, mainly in the analytics space for web or email, is usually the idea of who's not engaging, right? So that's why now we have engagement rate, mainly specific to Google Analytics for that is the positive version of this. So a 70% engagement rate will be something similar to 30% bounce rate. So the main thing is we just want to stick to one. Specificity, some metrics simply don't track user behavior relevant to our organization. So making sure that we have what is valuable and quality of analysis through data storytelling as visualization. You can dive deeply into site performance by applying a focused set of metrics to different dimensions. So it doesn't matter how many dimensions you want to work in. The main thing is you want to know what you are measuring. And that's why we talk about like the less sometimes is the better when talking about metrics. So this is more of how we can conceptualize this. is thinking about how you're reporting this. If you have too many numbers in one page related to just one question, it can become overwhelming. If you feel overwhelmed by it, most likely the stakeholder or the person you're reporting to will feel overwhelmed by it as well. So there's so much that we can break this down. And thank you for liking the slide. But we don't need to. For example, if we're just wanting to know how much revenue each channel provided, we don't need to know how many users were active or not. Types of metrics, again, organizations should decide on core metrics. This is something that is a wider conversation internally per organization, but things to keep in mind is quantity of traffic, amount of users who visited a page, clicked an email, etc., visibility of the page or campaign, and quality of traffic, revenue of each traffic source, percentage of users who meaningfully engage with your site, email, content, ads, etc., and the duration of the engagement. So that's why we broke down the 5 metrics to consider would be sessions. Again, number of user journeys that began on your site. Think about this as how they first engage with you for that moment. It's not that they just saw the campaign, it's that they came from somewhere and started interacting with the campaign. This is somebody that is not just leaving. And so the session value is that you know this is a person that has some investment, even if it's minimal, even if they don't convert right away. Views, this is just getting a general sense. This is a little bit a broader step back. Number of web pages your users saw, campaigns, repeated views of a single screen or page are counted. So thinking again, comparison sessions and views. Views, you will have multiples in one session, and sometimes even of the same campaign or same page. And then we have engaged sessions and engagement rate. Engaged sessions is sessions that have a meaningful interaction, and engagement rate is the percentage of those engaged sessions. And so an engaged session could be mainly 10 or more seconds spent on the site, or 2 or more page views, or maybe a key event occurrence being, for example, a conversion, somebody donated. That would already be considered as an engaged session. But I would want to focus a little more on the engagement rate, mainly because that again gives us that valuable metric between the sessions. So what is the percentage of those sessions that are engaged? Instead of just looking at sessions and how many of those sessions were engaged, you can just combine it into looking at all the sessions you have and then your engagement rate. You have an idea of that additional number. Average session duration, again, length of time that the website had, that the visitor has been on the website, interacting with the site, even if it's just reading through the same page. If it's on their browser and it's the first thing that is there, it's not like they're on another page, that is being counted as time being spent. And the most valuable one, I would say, total revenue. Again, coming from donations, any additional engagers that you have, etc. Want to stop for a second, just double check if those of you that are here are still following. If you have any questions, again, always feel free to throw them into the Q&A, or if it's something urgent specific, in the chat is fine too. Awesome, thank you, Mars. So moving on to Looker Studio. So as I mentioned, we have our 5 metrics. We know what we want to get started with. Looker Studio is just a tool that will facilitate how we are representing these numbers, how we are presenting them into a narrative. And it's more of a drag and drop, copy and paste kind of play format. It was previously known as Google Data Studio. As I mentioned, a visualization tool. It can connect to multiple sources. Thinking about anything in the Google realm is or has a direct integration already. but there are others that could also connect easily. This allows us to produce dynamic visualizations for reporting, again, narrative. As I mentioned, why using it? Dynamic data visualizations. It has a wide range of styles, so you can do tables, you can do pie charts if you like that. You can do bar charts, you can do scorecards. The main thing is anything that helps you provide a clearer view of what you're reporting. It turns to be easier as you get familiar with it. It could feel overwhelming, but I think once you get a sense of how to build a dashboard, which can take some time, the presentation of it is really easy to read. It all depends on how you arrange it, but it can be very, very interactive and intuitive. And the compatibility, as I mentioned, most of the Google sources, being Google Analytics, YouTube, and YouTube Analytics. If you use Google Ads as well, all those integrate directly. If by any chance you only have the option of spreadsheet exports, you can have it into Google Sheets, and that would be an easy direct integration. But there are other options, and I will talk about that later in the presentation. So creating a dashboard is as simple as going to, if you already have a Google account, otherwise create a Google account for this purpose. Once logged in, you can go directly into lookerstudio.google.com. And from there, your main page will always have a little start with a template or a blank report. The templates are fun, and there are some that are really, really helpful. If you already know what you want to do, you can always do a blank report. From there, you select the data you want to connect. And in this case, being able to also do other third-party platforms is optional. But the main thing is it will guide you through this process. For example, connecting Google Analytics 4, it will give you the options of the access of the different Google Analytics properties that your account has already access to. So again, this is something that you want to make sure to do with an email account that you also have access to Google Analytics for your nonprofit. Once it's connected, it will give you like a general view of a starting table, and you can then just edit completely what is there. So you have here the menu components. Think of it as what you would do with Microsoft Word or Google Docs as your main section where you have your menus, how to add any widgets onto the main section, which is your dashboard area, which all visualizations would happen. And on the right side, you have all the data sources and the different data values that you can have access to. These being metrics or dimensions. We can take a quick look. We can go through a quick view. I have already like a full-blown example of what this could look like with those 5 metrics. Again, having a quick drag drop option of we have your menu for going to specific sources, looking at total revenue. You have a date picker. And here you're looking at just your 5 top metrics. If you wanted to look date over date or particular specifics, you can also break down or compare if necessary or wanting to look into sessions per revenue. And then here again, this is where you can have your 5 metrics with source of data you want to know. Then from these sources, let's say because there was only through direct, this is all whole whale data, then you can drill down into what that landing page would be like. And so we also see source medium in this case, and then landing page. As I mentioned, again, click blank report. It gives you which data source you want to start with. Let's say Google Analytics. And we select whole whale. And there's also a new structure of the platform, which it's allowing you to have a little bit more on how to adjust things on the page. Oh, that is a good question, Macy. Would you mind tossing in the Q&A? So Google Analytics should be installed on your website. So that is something that is added either through Google Tag Manager, which is a different platform from Google, but then it connects to Google Analytics data, or Google Analytics, or you can have an account with them and then install some code onto the site. Similarly with causevox, I believe you reach out to their support team and just give them the ID of the Google Analytics property measurement ID. And they should be able to support you and guide you through how to add Google Analytics onto those campaign pages. But that would be then how it would add that data into GA4. For the first question, sorry, I'll come back to that. So the main thing, it now gives you a layout format, and then you can add the charts. And if you can see on this side, I already have my GA4 dimensions and metrics. So let's say I wanted to start with those scorecards that we saw on the previous one. And here it gives me already like the little piece. This is views, is by default the most common one that is added. Here you have many more options to customize it, but mainly you want to see here, you can also search for other metrics. And so in this case, I just wanted to start with sessions. Down here, I have just sessions. You also have the opportunity to do a comparison date range down here. And let's say I just wanted to do it to the previous period, because some things change very often. If we had a campaign, for example, that is perennial and it just goes year over year, probably previous year would be a perfect comparison here. If we're going to do this for the particular campaign. Let's say then that we want to have a different chart. This would be, I did a time series, maybe I want to do a vertical timeline here. This gets adjusted as you need it. You can do it full length, or maybe I just wanted to center it a little bit more. And in this case, it just views. We can do date. And there we have the breakdown per day. We can do optional metrics, which is what I did in the previous one. So we can have sessions. And therefore, when you go through here, optional metrics, you can click on sessions, unclick views, and then you'll have that option. So this is a quick overview how to get started with Looker Studio. Again, you can always also drag and drop things here. There are ways to filter this data. If you wanted to just see, for example, a particular campaign, you can add it as a filter by creating the filter and having that condition there of, let's say, particular name of campaign thrown in there. Yeah, one thing I wanted to do is actually make this available for you all. It's given me some issues to share, but I'll make sure that it'll be accessible through Gen and causevox for you all. Awesome. Well, I know that I have limited time, so for that said, and I will see if it would make more sense to also add some of this in the slides. But for now, I did wanted to talk a little bit. I would imagine a Bible would be certainly. I don't know if I can promise that, but I'll give you something not so close but helpful. I'm wanted to also talk about data feeds. Again, as I mentioned, causevox already connects directly to Google Analytics. This is again an easy simplification of reporting that is all you need. So technically, for the purposes of having a general overview over most questions answered from a campaign performance standpoint, you don't need anything else. However, data feeds are recommended when you need to do a more in-depth analysis against, for example, promotional advertising campaign and one or multiple social media channels where comparing revenue to spend is valuable for an accurate cost for conversion perception in that sense. And coming to Mace's question on how social media engagement numbers up here. On one side, you have the look on sessions per campaign or source medium when you look at social media as a source. But if you wanted to look at data and engagement directly into those platforms, which is not something that you can send to Google Analytics, or I believe you might have some access through Zapier with causevox, but not exactly integrated the same way. But you want to know about this. That's where some platforms, some data feed tools come handy. Again, this is where you want to skip some of those CSV exports or Excel sheets that you might be able to pull from those reporting sources, which could support and streamline how you're working with this data and how you're building these reports in Lucas Studio, or if you wanted to use Tableau or something similar that is also free. This is kind of the thought behind it. The tool I'm talking through really quickly is Supermetrics. We don't really have any particular like sales pitch for them. It's something that we have been the most familiar with, but again, it's something that I would mention that is also on the pricier edge. I do have other recommendations for different purposes. The main thing is that, for example, with Supermetrics, there are different connectors that they already have access to that easily directly create a connection into Looker Studio. So before I get into that, when you go in and try to add a different data source, you might be able to just find Supermetrics if it loads for me. While it does that, I'll come back to this. So in that sense, it mainly just asks you to log into the Supermetrics account. That if you decide to go through this route, you would be able to have. And the only thing it does, it shows you already the data from the sources that you wanted to pull from. So quick demo going into Supermetrics. Again, I wanted to share it's around $40 for their starter. Destinations in this case is, for example, Looker Studio. That's a destination. It allows only for one user and one team and a base level of 3 data sources. You can add additional data sources for additional price, but the main base here is 3. And again, looking into specific advertising, which it tends to be the most common data source that is helpful to have in terms of reporting. They have Facebook ads, Facebook Insights. They also have Hotjar if you're doing that kind of web reporting. Instagram Insights, they have already connectors with Microsoft Advertising if you're doing Bing ads. Same thing with LinkedIn. Pinterest, if that is something that you are exploring with or is helpful with your organization, and multiple other options. If you're going through the route of some of the news sources, you might use Taboola to add those very annoying little like squares in random pages that might not seem so congruent, but they're there and sometimes they grab attention and you click on them. That happens to me at least. But again, going back to TikTok ads, Yahoo, X, those are available. Again, mentioning YouTube is native to Looker Studio, but for the others, all these options are available to choose and then pull the data from there directly into Looker Studio for reporting, which is why I think it's still one of the best sources to add this additional data into the same place. And so once you have your account, you usually could go to the subscriptions where you can manage those data sources. You have your, for example, Supermetrics for Looker Studio. We have old version, which only allowed for Facebook ads for us. Here you can manage the data sources for Facebook ads, different accounts, etc. And as I mentioned, if hopefully, oh, it's just freak me out. Let's try to do a separate thing altogether. And instead of just do supermetrics here. And if it takes too long for me, I'll go ahead and say, hopefully you can take my word for it. It does show up, I swear. And that is how you would usually connect. It does give you the classic pop-up window where you would do the sign in into Supermetrics, brings you back, and then finally populate similar to what you saw with the Google Analytics data, where you can select that data source if it was already there. Sorry if I'm just jumping all over. Again, I did wanted to have time to mention the other options. Again, there's Windsor.ai and Funnel.io. Both of them have a free option to explore that I would really recommend if you're thinking of some of these main advertising platforms. Sorry. There's also Data Slayer and Power My Analytics. Those are, at least Power My Analytics is at the same level as Supermetrics in terms of being out there as a platform and being already seasoned on how to get there. This would be to answer this would be the long answer of how to get social media engagement numbers up into a dashboard and into your reporting. Again, when you populate it, you would get similar things to some of the conversion metrics that you would see in the same ads platforms. Click-through rate, impressions, etc. The last piece I have is thinking about insights. So strategic insights versus summarization, it's great to focus down into a few metrics. So again, as we mentioned, those 5 metrics can help us a lot once we're thinking about context. So reports sometimes remain at surface level as data summaries. We want to make sure that we have a bigger bite to what we're trying to what we're trying to answer. And so what next are kind of helpful questions to give ourselves on how we are approaching our reporting. So for our example, we want to find strategic insights. What novel, interesting discoveries can we find in data? Why do we think the outcome occurred? What insights can we surface that highlight successful or unsuccessful strategies? We do say that both insights are helpful or useful. When I know that it's a little bit taboo in some cases to say like this didn't work because of all the effort or even money spent that has gone into it, but it gives us an idea of what now we can focus on, what we can discard and move on to. And it can sometimes shine into what would work. What questions can we ask the data? And what new questions can be answered? How can we leverage actionable insights to our benefit? Again, summarizing is not exactly enough. Considering framing every data point in the form of a strategic insight, finding actionable steps or key understanding or questions. Some of it, I know in some cases might feel like you're just guesstimating, but you want to make sure that you are basing all those answers strictly on the data. What happened? Why did it happen? Why did it happen that way whenever possible? And so here's a good example of asking questions to arrive at insights. Question one, is traffic to the site increasing year over year? Traffic has grown to, over 25% year over year. But why? Are donations to the organization increasing, particularly during key donation periods, such as end of year holiday season? Donations are staying stagnant during key donation periods. Okay, but why? What does the traffic to the donation page look like? Traffic to the donation page only increased slightly year over year. Okay, but why? So putting all these things together can bring us to the insight. Despite the increase in traffic, users are unable to find the donation portal, and those donations are not increasing. This can be through digging into some of the analytics data that we have on how engagement sessions are happening or engagement rate on certain sessions, the duration time for particular views, or looking at holistically sessions and total revenue. So after generating insights, use those insights to inform action items for your organization. Thinking about the example, the organization should look for ways to make the donation portal more visible, making buttons stand out more, adding more avenues towards the portal, not just social campaigning, but also making sure that it's going throughout different landing pages on your site, for example. Note that we only need two metrics to analyze and understand these situations: sessions and total revenue. Applying a small number of metrics to a variety of situations, then analyzing the data deeply and generating insights is how you iterate on your site and make tangible improvements for fundraising. Thank you. Thankfully, I did get some extra time. So I do want to open up if there's any additional Q&A, things that you want to take a second look at, or any of the above.
Yes, any questions for Axel while we have his expertise here? Or any other pieces that you wanted to go back to read? Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Being able to see the metrics in those dashboards seems pretty easy to use. If somebody was to implement this the first time, what would be like one best practice that you have for them?
I think that in the general sense, you can take two different approaches to this. One is the holistical, which is what I did with the sample dashboard is just thinking on those 5 metrics and what I would think for them, but I would probably do it specifically per campaign. And so in this case, we can filter everything or have a main filter for the types of campaigns that we're looking at, being by landing page, if you're just filtering through the campaign names on your causevox account, or if you're thinking about campaign at the level of promotion. So that could be the campaign name being assigned in your different promotions pieces. Great question, integrating hotspot. That is through one of those data sources like Supermetrics. They would usually have those kind of connectors. I don't believe there's a native one for Looker Studio. But to finish my answer to your question, Jenna, I would probably focus on the particular campaign and then report through these pieces there. For example, again, looking into landing page, in this case, I would be looking at which ones would be those, let's say, university pages, which we have our own learning management system, and it's usually where our revenue comes from on our site, which would be different for a donation page in this case.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So break it up by campaign. And so, yeah, great. And then you can view the different campaigns in the list there.
Yeah, so you could either decide to set up a dropdown for them, or you can also create the filter. As I mentioned before, we can have it per widget or globally into the setup section where you can add a filter. And so, for example, creating a filter would mean then you have here campaign. I know how to spell campaign. Campaign, right? And campaign is campaign name. This is specifically in the world of Google Analytics related to UTMs. If you know about UTMs, they're little tags on the URL that you would usually have for different advertising purposes. And one of them is campaign, which is how you created or naming that particular advertising campaign. If we're talking about causevox, I would probably lead to either page title or something similar to just landing page.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we also have campaign name to filter by, most
If
likely.
it's assigned in that case, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great. Well, it seems pretty simple, easy to use, sort of like a Zapier filter option.
Yeah,
Okay. Cool. We have 2 minutes left for any last minute questions. You can still use the Q&A panel or the chat. And otherwise, I will just thank you, Axel, again. And I have this resource that you sent me that I'll drop in the chat. I think there are some templates available at that link, right?
that is correct. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So, well, I hope you enjoy your time in Croatia.
Yes, it's been fun. It was an unexpected adventure, so really
How
happy.
long will you be there?
I'm actually going back to New York tomorrow. So
You're going there tomorrow. Oh,
yeah, no, I'm heading back to New York. Yeah. Tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
My last day is today.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, great.
Mhm.
Well, safe travels.
Thank you.
And thank you again for spending your afternoon or yeah, time with us today. Hope you have a great one and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone.